Hello, I'm Dr. Joanne Martin, founder along with my late husband, Dr. Elmer Martin, of the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum. And I'm proud to be here today as we celebrate Juneteenth. But as a historian, I also believe that historical context, looking at the history of an event, is just as important as the event itself and knowing about the event itself. So let us look at the broader picture of black celebrations in regard to liberation. That will be our transported by the African captives to the slave-holding countries of the Americas. In our book, Social Work and the Black Experience, my late husband Elmer and I point out that these circle ceremonies, were used to carry out important group functions such as weddings, communion with the ancestors, and most important, the burial ritual. We state that the circle symbolized the unbroken unity of birth, life, and death, and functioned to maintain group solidarity and cohesiveness. According to the author Stuckey, the circle ceremony provides the key to understanding the means by which the many different African people brought to America on slave ships achieved oneness. The slaves called the circle ceremony the ring shout. The ring shout was a religious ceremony in which they gathered at the grave site of their dead and at other clandestine places, formed a ring, and moving counterclockwise, called on God and on the ancestral spirits, danced, sang, moaned, and shouted out their misery, pain, and grief. The use of the grave site as their common meeting place indicated an ancestral connectedness and a historical empathy with the suffering of past generations. Another celebration occurring during the slavery era was the Pinkster holiday. Pinkster is a holiday that was celebrated over several days by African and Dutch New Yorkers throughout the 1700s. The holiday was brought to the New World by Dutch settlers in the 1620s and flourished in the areas of heaviest Dutch settlement, the Hudson Valley, northern New Jersey, and western Long Island. Despite Pinkster's Dutch origins, Africans in New York and New Jersey were so successful at incorporating their own cultures into the celebration that by the early 1800s, Pinkster was actually considered an African-American holiday. Pinkster meant different things to different people. To Dutch celebrants, Pinkster was a religious holiday, a break from work, and an opportunity for visiting. For enslaved people gathering in rural areas or at urban markets, the holiday was all this and more. African men and women enjoyed temporary independence, made money, and purchased goods. More importantly, Pinkster meant the opportunity to reunite with family and loved ones, and the chance to preserve, reshape, and express African traditions despite the restrictions of enslavement. Another Pinkster was the opportunity for enslaved Africans to slyly mock their white captors through caricatures of European fashions and dancing and behavior, and to voice their own anguish through speeches, storytelling, and improvised call and response singing. Today, Pinkster is recognized as the oldest African American holiday of the 13th original colonies. people say that there's more than one Independence Day in the United States. They are referring to the fact that on June 19, 1865, General Gordon Granger rode into Galveston, Texas, and announced that slave people were now free. Since then, June 19th has been celebrated as Juneteenth across the nation. Although Juneteenth has emerged as the most popular celebration of slavery's end, Black emancipation celebrations were commonly observed all around the country during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. During slavery, the ceremonies and celebrations served to create a critical sense of oneness among the free and enslaved Black human beings forced to suffer under a powerful and oppressive slavery system. Many African American celebrations emerged to commemorate President Abraham Lincoln's January 1st signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, the document that freed all enslaved people in the rebellious Confederate States. Watch Night evolved into such an observance. African American Methodists had long celebrated Watch Night services, which they held on New Year's Eve to await the new year. However, Watch Night services gained additional significance and history in the Black churches as many African Americans began to gather in churches on New Year's Eve in 1862 to await the hour when President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation was to take effect on January 1st, 1863. As such, Watch Night services in the Black church, even today, are widely attended. Then, too, there is Jubilee Day, also known as Emancipation Day or Freedom Day. Jubilee Day is celebrated by many African Americans as, quote, the true Independence Day, since it commemorates the January 1st, 1863 issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation. On the other hand, many states marked Jubilee Day or Emancipation Day or Freedom Day on the day when the slaves were free in a particular state. For example, Washington, D.C. celebrates Emancipation Day on April 16th. In Maryland, slaves were declared free on November 1st, 1864, 1 year after the Emancipation Proclamation, but 1 year before the 13th Amendment, which legally abolished slavery in the U.S. Thus, in Maryland, November 1st is Jubilee Day. Ironically, although Juneteenth is said to mark the end of slavery in the U.S., the orders issued on July 19, 1865 referred only to Texas. Slavery didn't end in states like Kentucky and Delaware, for example, until December 18, 1865, when the 13th Amendment, which, as I said, legally and constitutionally abolished slavery, was enacted. And believe it or not, it was only on March 16, 1995, that Mississippi finally ratified the 13th Amendment.